As always, we will begin with 3 deep breaths. So take a deep breath in through your nose, out of your mouth, and again through your nose, out of the mouth. Last time in through the nose, and let that go. Today's topic is going to be consistency versus discipline. I want to thank the person who reached out for this topic to be spoken about on this podcast. I love this topic and I think it's an important topic because when I asked, I said, this is such a hot topic when people want to make changes in their life. Is there something specific you'd like me to hit on? And they responded with, I just have a hard time being consistent in habits that I know are beneficial to me. And I'm just self-reflecting on why. I'm going to use the word devotion. Like we're going to go deep into the word devotion and doing devotional acts. But first, let's hit on discipline and consistency. Let's hit on these words first. So when I think of the word discipline, I think of David Goggins. I think of my mother who wakes up at 3:45 in the morning to work out every morning and has been doing this for years and years and years. Like I think of those people that they just go balls to the wall with what they do. I think of the people who have a 2-hour sadhana. I used to be a person who had a 2-hour sadhana every morning. And so if you don't know what a sadhana is, it is another word for practice. It is a word that if you study any type of yoga philosophy or get deeper into yoga more than just yoga asana, you'll start to hear Sanskrit words, right? So your sadhana. And so that's what I think of when I think of people that are disciplined. I think of people that are so strict sometimes to the point that it almost teeters on a line of not being great, right? It teeters on the line of like almost too much, almost to a disservice that if they don't do that thing, there's like a whole glitch in their day. They can't function properly. Everything is crashing down around them. So I'm just telling you my opinions, but I would love for you to reflect on what these two words mean for you in this moment. So that's what discipline I think of. And then when I think of consistency, I don't think of the people that are balls to the wall, but I think of the people that it's like your grandfather who I grew up in Staten Island, New York. So it's your grandfather that woke up in the morning, he walked to his local deli and he picked up a coffee and a newspaper and he brought it back to his house and he sat outside on his lawn chair and he read his paper every morning. Consistency to me has a little bit more not rigidness. It's just people that know that if I do this thing consistently, I will feel good. I will be able to handle a little bit more in my day as long as I, take that minute to pray. I had my other couple, my other grandmother, my grandma Anne, who was consistent with her rosary practice. And she did that every single day. She liked to do it early in the morning, but if she didn't do it super early in the morning, she got to it throughout her day. So to me, when I think of discipline, I think of the person who's like, it doesn't matter that I was out until 12:30 at a wedding last night. I'm going to be up at 3:15 doing the rosary, versus the person who's consistent that's like, well, I went out last night and I'm going to give myself a little space and fucking grace here. And I'm just going to do it throughout my day. So I still get it done because it makes me feel good, but I don't have to force myself into something that maybe I need a little bit of rest. So the reason why I want to speak about the word devotion is because I find the word devotion has super shifted this discipline and consistency conversation for me. I did share I was a person that had a 2-hour sadhana at one point in my life. And I will say, it helped. It made a difference. The 2-hour sadhana was very constructive for me at that point in my life. But then at a certain point, it became not constructive. The more I became aware, I am speaking from a female-bodied perspective, the more I became aware of cycle syncing, of understanding that the menstrual cycle has 4 different phases, the more I realized, oh shit, yeah, when I'm bleeding, it is a fucking struggle to get my 2-hour sadhana done versus when I was close to ovulation, either before or after ovulation, a few days. Like, there's really only a week there where it was like, yes, I feel amazing. This is so easy for me to do. And then the rest of the month, the days, varied on how easy it was for me to get this done. So the more I got into menstrual cycle awareness, the more I pulled back on that quote unquote yogic discipline that I was deeply devoted to, right? So there's my favorite word, devotion. I had a client, I'm recording this on a Sunday, literally on Friday morning, and I feel like half of our 90 minutes together was talking about the word devotion. So I'm definitely going to share some insights from that conversation because I feel like it's quite relevant to this conversation as well. So if we want to take the word devotion out of it for just a moment, I love that this person shared that they have a hard time being consistent with habits that they know, by the way, that's all in capitals, I know is in capitals, are beneficial to me, and I'm just self-reflecting on why. And I think that we need to take a moment, take a deep breath, and give ourselves a lot of space and grace. Most of our nervous systems are not calm. Most of the environments that we live in are not calm. The world that we live in is not calm. We are addicted to blue light because we are always looking at our phones. I am looking at a laptop and a phone as we speak, and I have this huge bright light beaming on my face. We send emails, we go to work, we are stressed out about finances, we want to eat the right things, but then we go to the grocery store and we see how expensive the quote unquote right things are. So sometimes we opt out for the things that maybe we know aren't healthy for us, but fit into our financial budget. So when it comes to the self-reflection of why can I not stay consistent, what I have personally found, and I'm not working with this person in a one-on-one container, so I can't be sure what it is for them. It's right, what person A needs and person B needs and person C needs, there's all different things. But I think an overarching theme to most people in this world in 2024 is that, it's crazy, 2024, and it's August, so crazy. Where has the year gone? But we have to take into consideration that most of us don't have the proper outside world to support us in staying disciplined and consistent on the things that we know are good for us because of outside influences. And that's okay. We've got friends, we've got family, we've got life. Some of us drive cars, so we have car payments. You have to drive here, you have to drive there. If you don't have a car, you might take public transportation. Maybe that makes it longer for you. Like, I know these sound like silly things, but you really need to think of a nervous system. I've always said to people, if you have the opportunity to spend even just a few days at an ashram, being in devotion, because being in an ashram is not a vacation. Well, the way I did it was not a vacation, but I'm sure you could do it in a vacation type way. But being at an ashram, it gives you that space away from the world almost, where it's literally just, you wake up, you get to meditate, you have breakfast with everyone, and maybe, we do the dishes, and then maybe we get to go in the garden, and then we'll do a yoga practice, yoga asana. And then maybe it's just a very flowy way. And I understand why people end up living at ashrams for long periods of time. I understand why people end up living at retreat centers for long periods of time if they can afford that lifestyle, if they're able to afford the time that they have there. I also understand why I have had people in the past say to me, I was institutionalized at a mental facility, and that was probably the easiest time in my life after I got settled. Because yes, you're sleeping in a safe place, there's a roof over your head, someone's gonna bring you food, someone's gonna bring you your medication, someone's gonna tell you, hey, we're gonna go on a walk now, hey, we're gonna go do this craft that everyone is doing, hey, we're gonna get together. And you're just kind of ushered through your day where you get to turn your brain off a little more. The way our society is built, most of us don't have the opportunity to turn our brain off. So when it comes to consistency and it comes to discipline and practices that we know keep us physically right and mentally right, sometimes by the time that comes in our day, whether it's the morning, the middle of the day, or the evening, that our nervous system is shot. So we skip that thing and we say, you know what? Scrolling on TikTok. I love reality TV. If you don't know this about me, I love that shit. And so when Love Island airs, which is, there's 2 Love Islands that go on in the summer and then 1 franchise that goes on in the winter. If you're in the Northern Hemisphere, that is. And, well, it's everywhere, but I mean the seasons wise. And when it's on, I will opt out of certain things because I know that show brings me a stupid amount of comfort, and I can just turn it on, and I can turn the show on and I can turn my brain off. And for the 45 minutes to an hour long that episode is, and if you don't watch Love Island, they air every single day for like a month or like a month and a half almost. It feels like it's 2 months, and then you feel like your life is over because you've just spent almost every day trying to keep up with episodes. But what I'm trying to get at is the fact that these things that we know aren't great for us sometimes are helpful because our nervous system is tired. We are just tired in general, and they allow us to turn things off. Whereas I will always say, you can get to a point in meditation where your mind is quiet sometimes, but meditation is an act of doing work. When you sit there in meditation, you're given the opportunity to mull things over, to really think about things, to be in connection. And although you might have moments where you're like, oh, it's calm and still like a lake and it's silent, doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to be in the next moment. So, consistency versus discipline. So that's my response to the reflecting on like, why can't I be consistent in these habits that I know are good for me? That's one reason why. Then there's a ton of other reasons, right? There's like self-sabotaging, there's fear of success, there's all of those things. And it could be one of those things. It could be none of these things. So if you think it's something else for you, whatever platform you're listening to this episode on, please comment below. Why do you think it is that you can't stay disciplined or consistent? So now I'm going to like throw out the consistency versus discipline, and I'm going to say consistency and discipline versus devotion. So this is where I love where this conversation comes in, when we see that it's a devotional act. So now when I started cycle syncing, I realized even when it comes to working out, if you are in relation and in consciousness to your menstrual cycle, the quote unquote like workouts and just physical activity in general that you should be doing when you're menstruating versus when you're ovulating is completely different. So how can you be in devotion to every phase of your menstrual cycle? Now, I can also take this back to my sadhana. Your sadhana is a devotional practice. It's your daily practice, but it is your devotional practice. And what are you in devotion to? Who are you in devotion to? I want you to sit with that question for a moment as we take a deep breath. Because when we look at devotion and we start to see, okay, I'm in devotion to the idea of, it could be, right, when we look at sadhana, like we're in devotion to what? We're in devotion to Krishna. We're in devotion to God, whatever you want to call it. I had to shift my thinking, and over the years I've had to shift the thinking with other clients where, do you believe that you are a part of these things that you are in devotion to? So if you say to me, Dan, I'm in devotion to the goddess, my question to you is going to be, do you believe that you are a piece or a part of the goddess? And I'm going to let you sit with that. Replace goddess with whatever it is that you feel you're in devotion to. Whether it is the earth outside and it's just a singular fucking tree that you feel devoted to, or it's something else. There's another word for it. Obviously, I can't answer that for you. But do you believe that you are a piece of that? Do you believe that you are a piece of existence if you're in devotion to just simply existing? Okay? You're most likely going to respond yes. Maybe you're like, fuck you, Dan. No, I don't agree with you. That's fine. You can continue to listen, I hope. But the response of, yes, I do feel like I am a piece of God, I am a part of God, etc., then doing these practices keeps you closer to God, keeps you closer to the goddess, keeps you closer to Krishna. And so if breath work is the thing, if it's, and here's the other thing, because we also have to be realistic about our devotion. If you are not a person who lives at an ashram and you want to be devoted to doing 3 hours of meditation every day, but you have a full-time job, you have to commute to work, you have friends and family, that is an unrealistic expectation for your goal, right? And so we want this to be more realistic. So then it brings us to the point of, okay, well then how can I be in devotion for just 5 minutes every day? How can I be in devotion in the easiest way possible? Is that doing breath work while you're taking a shower or taking a shit? I know that like sounds kind of crazy, but is that the way you can be in devotion every day? When we're in devotion in these easier ways, it starts to create that consistency that we're looking for as humans. Because now it becomes, well, I'm consistent with this. I do it every day, no matter if it's 2 minutes or if it's 2 hours. If you work with me in a one-on-one container and you've never meditated before, I'm going to tell you exactly what I will tell you in our first session, which is I want you to start meditating for 2 minutes every day. And people are like, oh, like 2 minutes is such a short amount of time. I can do it longer. I don't want you to do it longer. I want you to do it for the 2 minutes because I want you to find the comfort spot. Later on down the line, we can add to those things. Of course we can, right? If you're enjoying the 2 minutes and the 2 minutes becomes so easy for you in 6 months, let's add another 2 minutes. There's no rush when we're in devotion. When we're in devotion to God, goddess, angels, archangels, a spirit guide, our ancestors, the trees outside, the stars in the fucking sky, they just want you to be, they want you to connect with them. It doesn't matter necessarily how long it is, as long as it's devotional. There becomes a piece that is energetic when we realize that instead of needing discipline, we've actually just needed something to be devoted to. And when I work with people, and even for myself, if I look at the idea of, okay, I'm finding it really hard to stay devoted to working out, I need to remind myself, my body is the body of the goddess. God created this body and wants me to enjoy this body. And I believe that God is in everything. And so don't I owe it to these things that I have faith in to even just do 5 minutes of stretching and maybe 5 minutes of some other type of fucking thing? So the devotional piece allows us to go deeper. And I'm gonna take this a step further and kind of share a little bit more. And I know this may not make sense, but it makes sense to me. So when I was speaking with this client on Friday about devotion, we started talking about the fact that when it comes to devotion, you can do everything in devotion and things just get easier to do. Sweeping the floor. Sweep the floor in devotion to what you have faith in. Sweep the floor for God. Sweep the floor as if Krishna was coming over for a cup of tea. Once you start to do things like, I'm going to do the dishes right now, not because I want to, because maybe I'm fucking tired, but you know in the back of your mind, if you don't do the dishes before you go to bed, you're going to wake up in the morning and be so upset that there's still dishes in the fucking sink. Then sit there with yourself and say, I'm going to do these dishes because if the goddess was coming to have a cup of tea with me, I would want her to come into a clean kitchen. I am also a part of the goddess, so I deserve to have a clean kitchen, even if no one comes over. It's a little bit of esoteric and woo-woo type thinking, but I have seen it make really great strides for people in terms of wanting to be consistent or disciplined. So I think when we really look at what we can do to be consistent and disciplined and why we sometimes stray away from these things, it's because we're missing the piece of being devoted and not goal-oriented. I'm not saying, oh, I want to lose 30 pounds, so I'm going to be disciplined, consistent, and devoted to blah, blah, blah. I mean, seriously, what the fuck do you have faith in? What makes you think, holy shit, this earth is so fucking cool because I'm connected to a ton of other shit? What makes you think, wow, I can experience joy, bliss, ecstasy, but I can also experience, love and grief and sadness, and all of these emotions are a beautiful thing? That's what creates the human existence, whatever it is that you have faith in, right? Because I know some of us have different things that we have faith in, and that's a beautiful thing. But bringing it back to the one thing that we can all agree upon is the fact that once you have faith in those things, don't you truly want to be devoted? I think devotion also gives you space and grace to be who you are. Devotion doesn't say, I'm so upset with you that you didn't work out for 30 minutes yesterday, or you didn't, do Reiki every morning like you said you were going to do. Devotion says, I'm just so glad that you're back. Devotion says, even if you sit here with me for 60 seconds, I am so grateful for those 60 seconds of you stopping by. Devotion, because here's the thing, right? So now we're going to get into like the psychology, but also the energetics of words. When we look at psychology, obviously we all have preconceived notions about certain words because of our upbringing and because of the societies that we grow up in. So the words consistency and discipline kind of give us a little ajita, you know what I mean? They don't feel so fucking great, most of us, because we're like, I haven't been able to blah, blah, blah. Whereas devotion is like, oh, it's like this auspicious word. It is an auspicious word, right? Being in devotion is a beautiful fucking thing. So let's take a deep breath and let it go. Once we recognize that devotion is proud of us for any little bit that we give, it starts to get easier to show up to those practices, to show up to those goals that we've set. Because devotion loves you no matter what. Devotion's not going to say, oh, you broke your 60-day streak. Devotion's going to say, but isn't it beautiful that you're here today? So I really want you to sit with this energy, and I really hope you guys are able to listen to this podcast and also interact, because I'd love to know what you're thinking about this. And this is being recorded at the beginning of August of 2024 on the new moon in Leo. So sexy. I love a new moon. If you are new to me and coming to my classes and you don't know this about me, I love a new moon. I love when the energy is inward, and I love when the energy is dark, right? Because in darkness is where we find the brightest of lights. And I also think that that relates to devotion. Devotion is always that little tiny speck of light in the vast darkness that we experience with certain things that happen in our life. And tomorrow I'll be teaching for the Wheel of the Year inside of this membership that I'm a co-teacher in, co-facilitator, and I'll be teaching for Lunasa. And something that's always so important to me, and which is something that I'll be diving deep into tomorrow with them, because there are some new members, is that your craft is accessible. And just because you take a step back from witchcraft or your craft, whatever the fuck you want to call it, spell work, ritual work, yada, yada, just because you take a step back doesn't revoke your witchcraft card. It doesn't revoke your spirituality card. You can still be in devotion to the divine and not be doing candle magic all the time. You can still be in devotion to the goddess and take a step back from your embodiment practices. If you're new here, also, we go deep into plant medicine. We host plant medicine retreats. It's a huge piece of our company, of our business, and what we're in devotion to, deeply devoted to the plant devas that we work with. But that doesn't mean that you need to be sitting in plant medicine ceremonies often. Like, not just you don't have to be sitting in them weekly, but also you don't have to be there often. But there are gentle little ways of devotion that you can connect again to those plant spirits, right? And so that's what keeps us going. So thank you so much for listening to this episode. I felt like this was a good one because quite a few of you have reached out with things you'd like to hear on this podcast, but this one was important to me because it was brought to me in the middle of June, and I moved on July 1st. I'm in a new home. I'm in a completely new town. I moved an hour and 15 minutes from where I was previously living. And consistency and devotion, those two words were really difficult for me to keep up with in terms of certain things. And we'll use the example of the podcast that you're listening to right now. After the summer solstice, I was like, I need to chill because I need some space to literally move my whole life. And so, like physically, but also energetically. But when it came to its root core, I'm still in devotion to the Wolf Mother podcast. I love having this outlet as a way to connect with people. I love that it's a way that I can bring responses to you guys and talk about topics with you guys without anyone having to pay anything. You just come here and you get to listen and you get to enjoy it. And so this whole time I've been still in devotion to it. And so I found myself in the middle of July where I was like, fuck, I gotta figure out in this new fucking house where I'm gonna sit down and do these podcasts. We live on a main road now, so we can always hear cars going by. And then I took a step back and I was like, but I love it, so I'll figure it out. And when I'm meant to record it, I will. And I'm not gonna force myself into it because that doesn't serve not just you guys, the audience who's listening to this, but it also doesn't serve me because then I'm not in true devotion to myself and what my physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual body needed. So on August 19th, we have a sensuality shadow work journey on Zoom. And so if you'd like to join us, make sure you go to my website and you go to retreats and events and you can sign up and you can join us there. This one is for all genders. And of course, at all of my classes, you can have your camera off if it's not comfortable for your face to be on there. And I'll, of course, talk about those things in there as well. So I'd love to see you there. And if you would like to dive deeper into one-on-one work, I'm open. You can go to the website and fill out the intro form and we can just have a discussion of what that looks like. So many blessings to you and to yours, and I'll see you guys soon.